Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Roberta's, home of Heritage Radio Network for 10 years. Learn more about Roberta's at robertaspizza.com.
Welcome to Culture and Flavor with Zella Palmer, a podcast about food and culture centered in Black and Indigenous foodways. Today, we're going to have a high vibrational conversation with Ryan Mitchell, the son of the legendary barbecue pitmaster from North Carolina, Ed Mitchell, who was recently inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame. Over 4 generations, the Mitchell family has been a shining example of generational whole hog barbecue as only Eastern North Carolina knows how to make. Ryan took his family's barbecue empire to the next level by co-founding True Made Food barbecue sauces with 0 sugar and helping his father, Ed Mitchell, become a barbecue icon. Today, we talk about Ed Mitchell's Barbecue, their first cookbook scheduled to be released this June, and the future of barbecue.
Well, welcome, Ryan, to Culture and Flavor. I'm so excited to have you here this afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great. Thank you so much. This is it's an honor to be on your platform and being able to share our story of my family. So we have a lot of history, and I'm just excited. I'm excited to be a part of what you're doing.
Yes, indeed. So I just want to pull it back and, talk a little bit about just this journey. And I want to let our listeners know, just this journey that we've been on. And I think, through our conversation, we'll definitely touch on some of the book, the moments in the book that readers can look forward to. But I want to just give our listeners a brief introduction to this project that we've been on, right?
No doubt.
Mr. Mitchell, your father, can you just give us just kind of a background on who your father is for those who might not be familiar with who Ed Mitchell, the legendary barbecue pitmaster from Wilson, North Carolina, is?
The legendary pitmaster, Ed Mitchell, my dad. So look, I start out every interview by saying first and foremost, my great-grandfather, Lawyer Sanders, had 35 children. All right, so 35 children. Those 35 went on to average about 14, 15 apiece. My grandmother, Doretha Mitchell, was at the back end of those of that 35. She was like number 34, and that is my father's mother, and that's where we get the culinary legacy and influence that started our family down this trek of being in the barbecue business. My dad is said to be the grandchild that looks the most like my great grandfather, Lawyer Sanders. So I always use that to kind of set the tone for the type of history that was circulating through our household and how we got into the food business and where we come from as it relates to the plantation life and Southern cooking. And all of that influence that ran through my household for me as a young kid, absorbing all of that was, was just an amazing experience. So my grandparents set out to own their own business after they retired, Mitchell Supermarket. Once my grandfather passed away in 1991, and my father began to make his journey back to Wilson, North Carolina. After taking jobs in corporate America around the country, coming back and trying to, be an entrepreneur, do a couple different things, around the city that, was ahead of his time. Once my grandfather passed away, to be honest, we got into the barbecue business by just reverting back to a place of healing and a place of just, using food as an avenue to kind of bring the family a little bit closer. So all of these culinary skills that my father grew up with, we started cooking whole hog barbecue, just to feed the immediate family as somewhat of a celebration. My grandmother's, she cooks, that's her method of coping. She cooks to get through grieving, and feeding people, and hospitality is her, that's her go-to, that's her feel-good moment. So my dad adopted, those same gifts, of being able to cook, even though he wasn't, a professional chef. Barbecue was known to bring family and the community together. So, we got into this game, really from a place of pain. To be quite honest with you, it wasn't a competition-based, celebrity-based barbecue back then. To be honest, it really wasn't something that you were, broadcasting about being, great at that point. So we got down this road. My father and my two uncles slowly began to create a reputation for our family around the city as being the last barbecue guys, the last barbecue family who was committed to cooking whole hog barbecue in its most organic fashion, which is over, wood flame, hot fired pits, direct heat, and just mastering the craft or showcasing the craft of whole hog barbecue, when most of the other places around town had moved over to shoulders and gas and other commercial styles of cooking barbecue. And slowly but surely, our reputation began to seep around the United States as being the last of a dying breed, and that's where it all began.
So that leads us to just our story, right?
Right.
I'm going to tell you all, the listeners, just this amazing, incredible story that we can't wait to share with you, because on June 6th, I think it is the book release date.
June 6th.
So Ed Mitchell's Barbecue. I'm telling y'all, get this book, Ed Mitchell's Barbecue. This is a barbecue story, a culinary history that I think that is going to blow your mind. I know it will, because I wrote it.
100%.
So I want to just go back into, just how that came about. So it was, my, how the connection in the universe works, and when we always talk about ancestors and how our ancestors walk with us, and our ancestors are always kind of controlling things. In 2000, I think it was 2019 or 2020, whenever the COVID hit, I just remember I was quarantined in New Orleans, and I was, received an email, and you all will read all about it in the book. And I'm trying not to really spoil too much of the book, because I want you all to, really delve in and learn about the Mitchell's history. I mean, that's 4 generations in that book, And the way we tell this story, we put a lot of love and just, a lot of conversations with the community in Wilson, a lot of conversations with the barbecue community. I'm excited that Dr. Howard Conyers wrote the introduction, that John T. Edge also contributed, there's so many amazing stories in this book. And, tell us a little bit. I'll let you tell the story first, and then I'll just piggyback on you.
Shout out to South Carolina, Dr. Conyers as well, too, man. He's an amazing guy that contributed to the project. But, like 20, just to back up just for a second, 2015, early 2014, we were at the Big Apple Barbecue Festival, and after 10 years of doing that showcase, that festival, we began to get approached by a couple of agents who were really just fans, literary agents who were fans and had been following us over the past 10 years and would come down and eat with us and hang out. And they asked me about what did I want my legacy to be, and how was I gonna take this baton and keep going with it. So my father was sitting there, and he had his 2 cents to say about all of it. But we decided to take a stab at signing with an agency and taking an opportunity to be able to tell our story, or at least getting the control of us telling our story versus having someone else do it for us, right? So 2017, we ended up committing to a deal with HarperCollins. And then, like you said, the pandemic hits, and I'm sitting at home, and this deal has been in the works here for a couple years, and I'm like, I've already written a proposal, it's been accepted, but what's going on? What's missing? Something ain't right. So the pandemic hits, and I call up the agency. I'm like, listen, man, the time is now. The George Floyd incident had just occurred. And we are, just trying to figure out how to, put some healing back into the world and be in control of our own story. And I get on a phone call with the lead editor at the time, and he tells me, hey, with all this going on and with all of the stories that are coming out to the world right now, I can't allow this to be told by anyone else other than someone that you share a cultural relationship with. This story cannot be told by someone else. And I was in total agreement, and I was like, listen, we've been scouring, we've been looking for writers, and we've been, creating these relationships, but nobody really is really getting us, and nobody I'm really comfortable with just yet, to be able to tell the world our story in a way that it deserves, and through the lens of another African American who understands the culture and can tell our story through a different perspective, So he mentions the name Zella Palmer as his lead choice, and I don't know, I don't know very much about this amazing person at that point in time. So I'm like, well, listen, we're going to take your advice and we're going to do the interview. And if this is who you are suggesting, then let's go. Let's set it up. Let's do it right now. So we set up the phone call, and God and all of his amazingness, we get you on the phone, and lo and behold, your entire vibe and your legacy runs right through, Wilson, North Carolina. And so here I am sitting here looking at my dad like, how on earth do we not know her? Like, where like where is she? Like, how is this person out in the world, and we don't know that she has a background, not just in culinary and food, but like she has roots coming from Wilson through South, through the Carolinas, has this amazing history. Her family's former plantation is on the road that I drove to school every morning. Ward Boulevard is the boulevard that the restaurant is on, that our original piece of property was on, that we purchased in 1985. Like, how is this all connecting, and how don't we know her? And, I really didn't want to, we interviewed you, and grateful you accepted the project. I really didn't want to talk to anybody else, but we had to. But like at the end of the day, when you said yes, I was, it was like, this is it. I don't know what, clearly God has some other things in store for this project. And I'm just glad to be a vessel. But he connected us, and he didn't know any of that. He didn't even know where you were from, but you were number one on his list. And,
wow.
and you can't really make that up. You can't write that. It wasn't some suggestion that was based on, some inorganic form of like trying to put two families together. He had been following your work, and I was like, well, if this is what it is, let's go. But for me personally, it was just so far out the realm because I think I know, everybody who came through my, who has a background in my backyard, who is in the industry. And but it just goes to show you how many amazing stories come from the South that get up and get to other places, man, and the talent that comes from here.
Thank you for sharing that. And, just to piggyback off of what you were saying, I just remember like a lot of you all, I was at home, dealing with a lot. My parents were in Chicago, during COVID. I was worried about my elder parents. I just had so much going on. And so that I never expected to get a book deal during that time.
Right.
And I honestly wasn't even taking it, because I had so much going on, and I was so tired of people lowballing, writers. I was just kind of just in a, weird, funky space,
Right.
And I remember, it was my cousin, Lisa. So shout out to my cousin, Lisa Henderson. She's a credible lawyer in Atlanta, but she's from Wilson, North Carolina. And Lisa is the one who actually grew up and born and raised in Wilson, North Carolina. And she has a blog about every Black person that ever lived in Wilson, North Carolina.
Right.
And she's been holding this blog, just putting content out there, and especially about our family. And so, I was always visiting, going down to North Carolina with family. It's my mother's side of the family. And so when I told Mr. Mitchell and you, let me back up. When Lisa stopped by my house during the pandemic, she was visiting from Atlanta. It was so random. And she's just like, you make sure you tell them that you wrote this, that you have family in Wilson, North Carolina. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, she said, make sure you take that interview. She said, take that interview. Ed Mitchell, are you crazy? Right. And so I called, eventually we set up the meeting, and immediately when I said my roots in Wilson, North Carolina, my great-grandfather, Dr. Joseph Henry Ward, and then my namesake from her family from Fayetteville, Zella Locklear, going back and doing this as a research project and, writing this book. I mean, my mother, took us and, this is where your great grandfather was. This is where his father was born. This is where, your great grandmother was enslaved. Her taking us around Wilson, it really became real when I was able to sit down and talk to you all about your story and document your story, and especially, talking to your father and talking to your grandmother, who is 90. Is she 92 now? 92?
Yeah,
93?
well, she'll be 92 in November. Yeah. So,
wow, 92 years old.
92.
Mother Doretha Mitchell. And you guys are going to get to know her when you get this book. I'm just saying. And, we went on this journey, and I just remember, eating Mr. Mitchell's barbecue. I mean, I had heard about his barbecue for years, and if you've ever been to Wilson, North Carolina, most folks who stop in a town, go to Parker's, which is, a well-known barbecue restaurant where you can get whole hog barbecue. You can get, corn sticks and, oyster stew, all the staples of Eastern North Carolina.
Right.
But when I was able to try Mr. Mitchell's barbecue, and, you at the helm, your uncles, you all are a whole family team,
Yeah.
It just blew my mind. It blew my mind. I've never had anything quite like that in my life, no, never, and just the perfect blend of, the sauce, because sometimes Eastern North Carolina gets a lot of slack for, being a vinegar based, culture.
You're right. We're a vinegar based culture, and that's, it takes a while for some people to understand that vinegar is vinegar and hot peppers, crushed red peppers is a mix of an actual sauce, and so it takes a while for vinegar to kind of grow on people, but we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna do it.
But actually, that vinegar-based sauce reminds me so much of like Cuban mojo, different other, West African sauces that I've tasted, that have vinegar-based, sauces. It's who makes it. If you use too much vinegar, then of course it's going to come out too acidic, right?
Absolutely.
But it's got to be the perfect balance. And you all have mastered whole hog barbecue. And I'm not just saying that because I wrote that book. I'm telling y'all, they have mastered whole hog barbecue.
Yeah, I appreciate it. The vinegar, the affinity towards the vinegar, obviously it's for flavor, but also, the Carolinas, Eastern North Carolina specifically, one of the last regions to stay true to the whole hog. But in early, you got to understand in early, in early settlers, early plantation life, when you are cooking the whole hog, the vinegar was used as a preservative for preserving the entire animal. So the sauce became not just the sauce, it also became a preservative and a natural preservative. And you notice as you get away from the state, you also get away from the entire animal, where you don't need as much vinegar to preserve it, right? So when you get into the shoulders and cuts, different smaller cuts, well, those areas didn't gravitate towards vinegar because they didn't need a lot of that, to preserve the whole animal. So it's a lot of different tidbits that you learn along the way on why people use what they use, and tracing back the culture and the history of it.
But what makes Wilson in your mind, so powerful and just this barbecue legacy and history? What is it?
I think really it's just was the commitment to the whole hog. Not only just the commitment to the whole hog, but you gotta Wilson was for all practical purposes a powerhouse in tobacco for a lot of the early 1900s. And, from its inception, tobacco and farming was, a revenue driver. So tobacco and the railroads and that farm life also has a connectivity to cooking the entire animal as well, because you're trying to feed, larger volumes of people in those settings. So at the end of the tobacco season, a barbecue, was the celebration. It was the form of celebration. And so, when, farmers and plantation hands are trying to feed, all of their workers as a source of celebration, the whole hog became the go-to method because it fed the most people. And it was a craft, that had been mastered for generations and generations. I think we even found a couple of articles where like the first barbecue sandwich, barbecue was like the first hustle of some of the black citizens of Wilson, on the plantation way back in the 1800s, when they were allowed to throw these shindigs, in the barns, and barbecue was, and vinegar-based barbecue was the cuisine, and it was used to kind of sell sandwiches and make a living. So it became a way to hustle and try and test your footing at being an entrepreneur, feeding large volumes of people. I mean, the animal itself was key, in survival, and Wilson was just at the source of that. It was far enough from the coast to where we didn't gain a true reputation as being a seafood place, but it was close enough towards, the middle and the central part to where we also were able to maximize farming and using the animal, as you can see, for years and years, all of the, at one point it was probably more hogs in Eastern Carolina than there was people. So all of the major hog farms, the economic engine of the state revolves around pork. And so a lot of the major hog farms were right around the Wilson County, Pitt County, Greene County area. And it's amazing to think about it that far, because I mean, we're talking about, the entire United States having, we were driving a revenue driving source for the whole country for quite a while with pork and tobacco.
This episode is brought to you by Cheese State University. Cheese State University was created for dedicated cheese professionals seeking to deepen their knowledge, sharpen their skills, and build connections.
It feels like a gift to be able to give this gift to people, because I know that from my own experiences, I know how valuable consolidated, incredible training resources are.
They offer an in-depth education on all things cheese, as well as an active network for peer support and career development.
You can pop over to the Quad, which is our social networking and engagement app. And so that's a really fun and dynamic aspect of Cheese State University.
Cheese State's 3-part course is designed for seasoned pros and entry-level mongers alike, and covers all the skills one needs to perform on the cheese counter.
The structure of Cheese State University is all based on the Cheese State University Field Guide. And that is a 3-volume resource. It's all digital, online.
At the end of the course, students will be ready to ace the field guide assessment and earn their Cheese State Scholar Certificate.
Another resource is a video series where we tackle sort of like these thornier questions that you can get on the cheese counter, like what is rennet, and like why is this cheese so expensive, and can pregnant people even eat cheese?
At Cheese State, you're among experts, you're amongst scholars, you're among cheese lovers, and most importantly, you are a monger. Join them in the Ivy League of cheese education at cheesestateuniversity.com.
And one of the things that I also appreciated in this book, just hearing Mother Doretha Mitchell's stories, not only about the role that men played, Black men specifically played in Barbeque, Mr. Mitchell sharing stories of, taking a swig of moonshine and being out there all night, barbecuing to the wee hours, and some of the mentors that really, just shaped his craft. And then being able to pass it down to you. And then, just thinking also about your grandmother and all of these side dishes, because I'm looking at the cookbook now and I'm just like, whoa, all of these side dishes that she made. I'm missing. If y'all don't understand, like tater jacks, what, I'm just
potato jacks, right?
And I'm just like, I want you all to try this, because I literally walked into their home, to Mother Doretha Mitchell's home, Ryan's grandmother, and just was able to sit down and just, have this amazing meal, this old time meal that I haven't really had in a long time. I mean, she's still cooking like our grandmothers used to cook, right?
Still cooking, man. Still cooking. I mean, it was, there's so much emotion tied into how she prepares the table, it's just such a deep story. She worked on, on plantations and former plantations for all of her childhood, and through the birth of my middle uncle Aubrey, she worked on was cooking and cleaning house for a lot of the plantation owners and families, and in those settings she would have to cook for the entire home. So when she would get home, she would replicate that cooking process for her family. And even though we didn't have nowhere near as many people in the house, right? And so for years and years and years, my grandfather was like, oh, Doretha, she cooked like she feeding the army. She cooked like she feeding the army. And her thing was, right to this day, if I say I'm going to come home, she will cook up half a kitchen full of food, right? And her thing is, if I had to do that for, if I had to do that in those environments, when I was forced to, then my way of my way of psychologically getting over that is to also do it in my home for my family. And so it doesn't matter who's coming, she'll cook up a bunch of food. Like, I'm going to give this effort and this love and this hospitality right back to my family when I had to do it in settings I didn't want to do it in. And it's just a deep, understanding, psychological understanding of just the culinary mindset, of the powerful women from that generation, man. It's just a deep thing.
It's really deep because, when I go through the book and I reread it over and over and over again before it goes to print, I just realized just all of these generations. And I think you are the last generation that has, and it really, is able to understand the past but also grasping this future that we're walking, this technological, advanced, life that we're living in now, and how you can take barbecue to the masses, and so, your, ingenuity and just intuition, like, no, we need to do something about making sure that this legacy maintains and it passes down to the next generation.
Right.
I think it's something that we'll be able to really talk about in this book, and it's going to be a lot of conversation. Can you just talk a little bit about, just you being in college, going back home, and, your dad has this restaurant, and then the eventual, switch that came on in your brain, like, no, I need to take this seriously, this generational family business seriously.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, again, to your credit, I won't give everybody the page number, but there's a photograph in the book where you found a historical photo of who we will say is Uncle Dave. Uncle Dave was born a manservant to the governor of the North Carolina. It was a black man who, in the book, there's a photograph of him in a suit coat, and he's slicing a watermelon. He was said to be, one of the lead, not just pitmasters, but one of the lead culinary people inside the governor's mansion. But he was born a slave, and he served as a manservant, right? So, to be quite honest with you, growing up in the restaurant, in the restaurant industry, to be honest, my grandma didn't really want me cooking. She wanted me she wouldn't let me cook. She wanted me in front of the cash register. You know what I mean? So
right.
For them, the grandchildren and the younger generation, for her, it meant so much to present myself as like her offspring were going to be presented as, educated young men who were going to be, out in the world doing things. And the connectivity to the kitchen, she didn't really like. She wanted me to be involved with the business side of it. But for me personally, I didn't have a connection to cooking and doing that type of stuff because, the hierarchy to what you could aspire to was, in that photograph. If you're black and you're involved in the culinary industry or the food, restaurant industry, that was what you aspired to. And I couldn't make that connection, man. For me, it was hard, to walk through that dining room and see those families who used to, belittle her, sitting there eating and enjoying our food. But for me, I was like, nah, I'm going to be more than this, and so for my generation, it was very tough to connect servitude and cooking and being involved in those environments with, even if it was your legacy, it was hard because we were raised to get educated and leave and go out to the world and be something else, right? Even if we did have our name on this building. So for me, when I got to school, it was like, man, I done cooked my last piece of chicken. I done dropped my last hush puppy. When I got out to college, I was like, this is not for me. I ain't looking back. I'm going to tackle the world, get my degree, play football, And our dad, this will be something I retire to, but not right now, right? So I graduated from college, with my little degree in hand, and football wasn't working out. And so I venture off into corporate America, and, years of educating yourself and going after what you think is the American dream, it all comes to an end in an office setting where they can just ship your job off to Singapore, right? So I went through a massive layoff, and everything that I thought I was working towards, disappeared right in front of my eyes. And so I had to make a decision to whether or not I was going to continue to try and, rebuild these office politics in another banking environment or in another business environment, or was I going to just really, truly, pursue the passion of being in business for myself. And so simultaneously, during that time, my dad, to his doing, he decided that, hey, the internet was just enough. He wasn't gonna be participating in that. And so if the business was gonna go any further, it was gonna be because I decided to come home and do what he had been directing me to do for the past years, which is come home, take over this family business, because he had already seen, the mountain. He'd already envisioned all of these things. He had already witnessed all of these people coming from around the country, filming and taking pictures and writing books and writing stories. And he would always say, he said, man, they ain't here looking for nothing. There's something on there's something on the horizon. He has that unique ability to stand still and see around the corner at the same time. And, he would always he's like, listen, man, it's fine. You ain't got to be in that pit doing it, but you better, if you don't come here and figure this out, then all this work is, what are we doing it for? It's bigger than this. It's bigger than that office. It's bigger than that, these things that you out here in the world pursuing. The legacy of your family is something you're going to appreciate one day. And, I couldn't see that at the time, but, I eventually did.
And it was Anthony Bourdain. It's interesting. Let me back up. So last episode, I was talking to Miss Linda, the Yakameen lady from New Orleans, right? And she was telling a story. I feel like, a certain generation have a story about Anthony Bourdain. Those who were in the industry early on, who were able to experience him with the Food Network. And she was talking about her son and how, he had come down and had some of her Yakameen in New Orleans. And, he started talking about, just his struggle. She had told him that her son had died of an overdose, a heroin overdose. Right. And he was so kind and just, really was talking about, that his son, his, I think I don't know if he had a daughter or a son, but his child really saved his life and stopped him from doing that anymore. And she was just like, I was just shocked that he was just so, just hospitable and easy to talk to. And I think that's a similar situation happened to you with Anthony Bourdain, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct.
I mean, yeah. I know all of this, but I'm just leading you in the right way.
No, it did. I mean, he was, professionally a saving grace for me, because he was the first person that I could identify as being not just a celebrity, but someone who was, had the voice and had the magnitude to really say, hey, what you guys are doing here is about, you have something. He was the first person to really, that came into our restaurant that I could, because me, I'm standoffish, I'm in the corner, I'm like, man, we ain't getting no money for this. Like, I'm talking ish in the corner, because we've gotten all these emails and we get people coming down here with cameras all the time. And at that point in time, the trade-off was, marketing. Like, hey, we're going to come in here and film and tell the world about your craft. You don't get much for it, but we're going to tell the world about you. And for me, that was crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I know you guys are about to turn this into a series for millions of dollars, but, you film all of these, you get all of this cultural knowledge, and oftentimes, the restaurateur, the people involved are, they have to figure their own way out on how to leverage it. So at that time, he pulled me to the side, and he had, heard some of my story about, what I was out in the world doing, trying to do professionally. He was like, man, listen, everything you're looking for is right here. Don't be too cool for school, man. You got this right here in this building. I sought your father out because not only was he the name on the building, but he also was the man inside the pits doing the cooking. He said, and I couldn't find that. Everywhere else he traveled around the country, it was a white entrepreneur's name on the building and the black people in the pit doing the cooking. And they had no connectivity ownership. So that, him being humble enough to really talk to me in that way, and directly, he ain't pulling no punches, about, what I thought I was going to want to see out here in this world. He was really direct, just like an older brother would talk to me, in that moment. And so, I took his words, and it really just kind of opened my eyes to really see what was happening. Food Network was at its, sibling stage, at its infant stage then. So what was going on, this filming of all this culture and this barbecue phenomenon was at the cusp of happening. And, I just had to, my dad, his intuition, is a gift from God. He's like, they ain't here for nothing, and I'm ducking the camera because I'm like, man, I don't want to be seeing on TV cooking no barbecue, what I'm saying? Boys laughing at me, I am, right? So I don't want to be seeing on TV doing that. That ain't cool, what I mean? Like Jay-Z ain't rapping about that. Kanye ain't rapping about me in the pits cooking barbecue. They talking about money and chains and all, and all these things, like that don't associate with that for me. So, so that was my, moment of like, man, this is crazy. There's getting ready to be a change, and we got to figure out how to get it to the world before they do.
Right. Right.
So if you don't take control of your story, somebody else will, and they'll say it's their story.
But then a light bulb went on in your head, and I'm just going to, I'm trying to just give you all just a preview of what this book is about, because I mean, this story is, it's an American story. It's just these generations, each generation's just trying to not only survive, but thrive and pass something down onto the next generation. And one of the things that your grandmother does, and what a lot of that generation did, we didn't use processed sugar like that, right? So they extracted the natural sugars from fruit to sweeten other things, right?
Absolutely.
Sugar was a luxury. We can't forget that.
Absolutely.
And so, that moment, talk to me a little bit about that moment, that light bulb that went on your head when your dad was in a diabetic coma.
Yeah, man. That was, probably what the most, one of the most scariest moments of my life. He was, we had been working on sauces and products for, fast forward, we're in the game now. We're figuring out some things, and, figuring out the restaurant industry within itself. But, my dad was always ahead of the curve about trying to figure out, how to get products in stores. And early on in our career, we couldn't find that niche. We couldn't, because, that was the decision makers were stacked against us when it came to kind of getting our earlier bottles of barbecue sauce on the shelf. So 2016, 2017, my dad gets diagnosed with diabetes, and we decide to put the brakes on. We got to figure out what's going on. We get through the recovery and the doctor's orders and all that kind of thing. And we decided, hey, we're going to use the rest of our time, use our platform in this business to try and recreate, barbecue sauces void of sugar. I was approached, by a business partner who had been, huge fans of ours, been following us from the Big Apple Block Party, man. He came and he found me, emailed us and called us over and over. He was like, you guys are the perfect people to create this partnership with, because your influence and your voice in this business is like no other. Everybody I go talk to say they learn from you guys. And so we developed a line of barbecue sauces, and we were very specific about the no sugar label, right? So my grandmother's recipes from back in the day, she would take butternut squash and carrots and fruits and stew them down into a serum, and that's what she will use as a sweetener. And lo and behold, man, we recreated some of our older sauces and some new sauces using that very technique. And, God's been good. We're in 5,000 grocery stores right now. Whole Foods, Sprouts, Harris Teeter, Walmart is launching us. But it's really, spending the rest of our time really is about connecting, our communities to the product, because in most settings, we have the most marketing of sugar-led products, in the country. Our communities and, underprivileged communities, people who are in need of different and better choices, better for you products, are usually the least marketed when it comes to things like this. So, it's not like we're recreating the wheel. We're just taking food and products back to how they used to be, before sugar became, the leading ingredient in everything that we consume. So it's been a journey. It's been an amazing journey.
So that leads me to talk about these recipes that are in the book.
Yeah.
This was, I kept on calling my mom and, and I'm grateful that you all even allowed me to share a family recipe from my mom. Well, it's actually her grandfather, who is from Wilson, and we were able to share his story and oyster stew recipe. But each one of these dishes, I'm just going to name through a few of them for you guys. Crackling hush puppies, let them roll fried green tomatoes, creamy deviled eggs, smoked collard green dip.
I'm getting hungry.
North Carolina, I know, right? North Carolina South meat, okra poppers, Ryan's crackling crusted chicken wings, rib tips with Ed's Memphis barbecue sauce. It goes on and on. And tomato pie. Don't let me start on the tomato pie. Mama Mitchell's oven cooked barbecue shoulder. And then you all also give, the kind of the blueprint for cooking in the style that you all cook whole hog barbecue. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, again, we try to cover the basis of giving some sides and some some of the things that we shared that were in our restaurant from the very beginning. We weren't we had chopped barbecue, grilled chicken, ribs, and one special, but we had our restaurant was full of way more veggies and side dishes than it was actual meats. That was my grandmother's thing. So the blueprint for cooking barbecue, we give away, some of the trade secrets. You might have to come down here and eat to get the rest of them, but we get you pretty close with the recipes in the book, as far as the process of cooking the whole hog, the tradition of banking the hog and learning how to, cook a whole animal without it, burning up, and you checking on it every 2 seconds. People are a little intimidated by cooking the entire animal. So we try to make it easy for everybody to not be so, to go ahead and take a chance and walk you through the process of cooking the whole hog, along with the other recipes. So.
And it was so cool because, we were able to witness your dad get inducted into the National Barbecue Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Then we also, before the book was over, and, I wanted you to kind of talk about the future of barbecue, but, we were invited, your dad was invited, and you, to the Churrascada Barbecue Festival in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I just came along just to witness and include it in the book. But that was amazing moment,
truly.
Where barbecue, whole hog, Eastern North Carolina whole hog barbecue made by the Mitchells is now global, you know. And I know you all have done other stuff before, but to come to Brazil,
that was
and,
a big,
you know,
that
just
was hands
see that.
Hands down the biggest.
Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, Brazil for me was, you know, from standing in the corner, you know, with Antonio Bourdain 20 years ago, not wanting to be seen, to now seeing this craft be introduced or highlighted, let me say, highlighted in an entirely different country. I never would have dreamed that would be a thing that would be possible. So the future of barbecue, like, you know, it's really about understanding. Being over there allowed me to understand and just get more humble about the passion that people are putting into this craft, the passion that goes into eating from the land and giving back to your fellow man through acts of service. You know, for them is more than just barbecue. You know, in Brazil it was more about the hospitality that comes along with being appreciative of the fire, you know, of the animal, and, you know, the things that they have to go through just to be able to feed, you know, large groups of people like that. It's so communal, you know, and spiritual, you know, to see those guys making, you know, they don't even allow lighter fluid in the country. You know, you got to light the fire with your hand and learn how to, you know, maneuver it and get it ready for the day. You know, none of the commercialized things that we use over here in the country. They don't have oak woods. They don't have a lot of things, and yet they produce the best barbecue and best smoked meats we've ever had in my life. So to see the craft be highlighted in that way, and also for them to be knowledgeable about including an African American into their celebration as a form of as a form of motivation for their culture and their people was really huge. You know, because that was a big part of them extending the invitation to my dad, was to also pour some their culture is rich enough, but to see an African American bring a level of success, they do it for love of the craft, and to see someone be successful at it was big for them. They wanted to spread that joy, and I was blown away. To be quite honest.
I know I was blown away. I know I was blown away just seeing, just how deep barbecue culture is in Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
and then how many people were going up to you and your dad, and you all were just you all were superstars, and especially Afro-Brazilians,
Right.
they were going up to you all a lot and just saying, thank you for being here. And this just gives me, further motivation to push forward. And you don't realize that,
Right.
Until and I'm sure it was just like a mind-blowing experience for you, but me as a writer, capturing that moment for you all was profound for me.
Yeah, humble ain't even a big enough word. I mean, because you don't know these things. Because we like I said, we had to come into the craft from a place of pain, and to somewhat see it get to this point to where, to be quite honest, they also were there. Their beginnings were the same, and kind of still is. They're cooking and doing all and creating this amazing food just for the love of it. They have a few commercial places. They have, like the restaurant we went to, the actual Churrascada, restaurant was something like out of a movie.
Unbelievable.
You know what I mean? But those unbelievable. Like the rooftop is off, and they got open flames everywhere, communal tables and candle lights, and it's like a movie set. to see.
And then they were selling all that meat. Remember the different the quality meats. It was like a whole like library for like meat aficionados.
Yeah,
and,
all the cured foods, all the cured foods that they had there. Different animals, that they had, that they were treating as a delicacy. And it was just unbelievable, because they are so appreciative of the craft, all the way down to the staff. You know what I mean? It's not a job. It's not like just a job for them. It is, hey, we celebrate our life through doing this every day.
So now after, we've written this book, it's about to come out, in June. What are you excited for? And what's your favorite, one of your favorite recipes in the book, or something that you think that our listeners should, pay special attention to?
What am I most excited for? I'm excited for my, I'm really just excited for my dad to get some vindication and to get some, just to take a moment. He very rarely celebrates anything, himself or what he does. So I'm excited for him to be able to just to know that he was, his vision, just as a black man coming from the 1940s in the South, to see his vision be able to be, acknowledged in such a way. And that's huge for me, as a son, to be able to give him that moment. And I'm excited for the world to see your talent, your literary talent. I mean, it's to be able to weave, to be able to bob and weave, this book in the way that I tell people all the time, yeah, I'm excited about the recipes, but she literally wrote a movie. Like, she wrote a movie script. This is just more than just recipes and food, and it is a culinary, masterpiece.
Don't make me cry on this podcast.
I swear to God, in my personal opinion, it's a culinary masterpiece because you captured the history, not just the history of what we're doing, but like the history of the people, all of the people that made us who we were, and the generations before us. There's so much to learn from it, being able to dive through those archives. And I mean, it's like you found there's billions of photo archives. You found the absolute best ones to use for historical references in the book. And I'm just, I'm beaming with pride for that part. My favorite recipe is probably going to be able to I'm going to go with the oddball carrot cake, because most people, my friends included, ever since I've been growing up, nobody understands my grandma makes carrot cake with yellow icing. Like, they ain't never heard of that. So, but when they come to that house and they eat that cake, they were like, I used to have friends that follow me home from college, and stop. And wouldn't leave the driveway till I brought them a piece of cake out, and then they would hit the road and get on back to their hometowns. But, that's going to be one of my favorites.
It's nothing like your grandmother's cooking. I mean, I'm just saying, those tater jacks, wait till you all try these tater jacks.
Tater jacks, man. People call them fried pies nowadays, but no, it's a little different. It's a little bit different from your traditional fried pie, man. And it's just
and talk to me a little bit about pig pickings, because we have a section in the book called Pig Picking Menu. And for those who aren't familiar with North Carolina culture, what is a pig picking?
Well, a pig picking is it's a celebration of the beginning or the end of the season, of the tobacco season, or it's the beginning of the summertime barbecue season. As we have gotten more, a little bit more politically sound around, we use the pig picking menu for celebrations like Juneteenth. It's a celebration of the food and the heritage. But what it is we take the whole hog and we, cook them and smoke them up real good, season them up real good, and you get to walk by the whole hog and kind of pick your piece off that you want. That's where it originated from. It's some real country stuff. Some people, like a little funny about that now, especially in the world we live in now. But hey, you come by and you pick off your favorite piece of the hog with your hand, and you get to kind of see the animal and like see where everything comes from that you like, and then you surround that with the traditional sides like coleslaw. We got the corn on the cob, baked sweet potatoes, baked beans, collards. We got the cucumber salads.
Brunswick stew.
Brunswick stew, man, I could go on. Brunswick stew, macaroni cheese, and of course sweet tea by the gallons is on the other side of the table, and it's a chance for you to kind of just it's a really it's a really outdoorsy, semi savage way of eating food. It makes you feel like you're out in the woods, just having a good time. And so that's the origin of it.
And then I think one of the dopest ideas that we had, and I want you to just, share with our listeners some of your favorite songs, is when we curated a playlist to match with this cookbook. And it is the ultimate barbecue playlist that really not only just, will have you dancing and will have you barbecuing in this summer, but it also is, it's taking you down a journey of history about barbecue, about moonshine, about growing up in the rural South. Yeah. I mean, there's so many songs in here that we included from some of the early musicians, early artists that were, singing about barbecue and moonshine and, their woman leaving them, right? So tell me a little bit about your ideas, just some of your songs that you like.
Some of the playlist is that's like a hidden gem, of the project. I'm a huge, I grew up with Sam Cooke and Otis Redding because my dad and, they played all of those blues songs a lot. But taking us from those artists and incorporating some of the newer artists, Frankie Beverly and Mays, I guess, is right in the middle of that. We cover all the emotions that come along with being outside, making you think about the food, making you dance and happy about the food, make you see how far we have come, from with the food through the project. We got Layla Hathaway. We got Nina Simone.
So many. So many on there. We even put some Brazilian songs in there. We got just some
Brazilian. I think Toto. Somebody is one of the Spanish songs up there. Man, I'm still trying to comb through a lot of it. Because everybody's always asking me. I was like, man, we're going to cover. Look, just invite every piece of the culture to your house. Black folk, white folk, the Chinese, invite your Chinese friends, your Brazilian friends,
Yes.
It's a whole block.
Everybody.
Cover the block.
It's going to be a pig picket.
Bring the whole block from everybody.
And, we're going to go on this book tour and, some folks are reaching out for us. I mean, I don't want to spoil it yet because, I want you all to, just follow us. You can follow Ryan on his, and I'll ask you to shout out your Instagram pages and your contact information. But, we will have a few pig pickings. We're going to really promote this cookbook and just this next, chapter in the Mitchell legacy. And, hey, this book might turn into a whole movie,
Absolutely.
Because this story is profound. And I don't want to spoil all of it for you all. We don't want to give everything away.
We got so many tour dates, but most important, right now on the table, one of the most important things I want everybody to be tuned in is June 13th. That's locked in. We are going to be featured on the Today Show, and not just the Today Show, but we are like the first Black father and son to kick off Father's Day weekend on the Today Show. We start out the week-long celebration of Father's Day that rolls into Juneteenth as well. So, man, just to to be able to be up there live, celebrating, you know, all of the amazing fathers around the world, man, that's probably going. I'm gonna have to keep my shades on live TV for that one, because I don't want to be up there looking soft.
Oh, I'm sure this is going to be just fine. And you all are going to look amazing. You all are going to just kill it. And, you know, just book sales, sauces, you know, all of that. And because you all have such an incredible story. I mean, it was an honor to sit down and just, you know, talk to everyone and really spend time in Wilson. And, you know, I personally, you know, it was a personal journey for me too, because I've been researching, you know, my family for quite some time. And my mother was the griot of the family. So she was always on us about telling everyone who was in, you know, about every family member that was ever in our family. And to actually be able to go to Wilson and to sit down and have barbecue with you all and to walk where my ancestors walked is just something I will always cherish.
Right.
You know?
I couldn't have, like, there's nobody else in the world. Like, there's no other writer, certainly not on your level, that could ever have shared that experience with us like that. Like, that's just God, you know, merging his people. You know, like, I don't, you can't even fix that. You can't find that.
And North Carolina is such a special state. I mean, the Carolinas in general, I don't want anybody to get mad and, you know, to say, oh, what about South Carolina?
Right. You know?
You know what I'm saying? I just want you all to know that North Carolina is a very special state with so many different cultures and so many incredible stories. And it's just an honor to really put this cookbook out from a legendary barbecue family from Eastern North Carolina. And, you know, that North Carolina, you know, we need your support in this.
For sure. We need it. We need it big time. NC stand up.
Yes, ENC stand up. Tell us where people can follow you. You
can follow me on IG at BBQ Prince 1031. Also at True Made Foods. You can also find us on Facebook at the Pitmaster Ed Mitchell. And our website address is thepitmasteredmitchell.com and truemadefoods.com. You can order the sauces and order our products as well from those two websites.
And the cool thing about True Made Foods, one thing I love about, you know, you all sauces is that each sauce represents a different region. So if you love Memphis barbecue, you can have Memphis barbecue sauce. If you love vinegar sauce from North Carolina, you can definitely have that too.
You can have it all. We got Central Texas, South Carolina with the mustard base. We got the Carolina Red, and we just introduced the rubs. So the rubs are in the book too. So we finally got those done. So we're trying to cover everything, man. And the book is pre-sale. It's on pre-sale right now on Amazon. So make sure everybody goes and checks that out right now. You can get it before June 6th. Reserve your copy.
Thank you so much, Ryan Mitchell, for joining me on Culture and Flavor.
Thank you so much.
Culture and Flavor is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.